Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, guns up, Jayhawks down in Lawrence, Kansas.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. So just visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris safely back in God's country following a trip to Lawrence, Kansas, and he's packing a dub. For only the second time ever in the history of this series, Tech is able to get out of there on the right side of the win-loss column with a win in Lawrence over the Jayhawks, 78-73. The good news started flowing early as we saw Chance McMillian and Darrion Williams back in the mix, Chris. But as the day went on, you knew it'd be hard fought. You know, it's not like Kansas is having a losing season or totally upside down. They're just not the Kansas that they're accustomed to. So certainly didn't want to take that lightly. And Tech did not. And, man, final few minutes of the ball game, I thought we really saw some maturity, saw some guts, saw some intestinal fortitude from the Red Raiders as the issue was obviously in doubt. But you wind up getting out of there with a 5-point win. And I don't care what Kansas is doing with their season in any particular year, Chris. When you leave Lawrence with a win, I'm partying. I'm celebrating that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, you know, in my day at the old Fieldhouse began with seeing make sure I get these names right, Anton and Brandon driven up from Dallas. I hear, hey, you know, from behind me, a couple of Locked On listeners, appreciate those guys because I saw them well before this game tipped, and I saw them after it had ended, and I was like, sports, man. Like, you guys picked a heck of a game to drive from Dallas to come up and watch in person. And there's several people I saw in the building, but I just wanted to make sure that we said hello to those guys as they watched this particular show. So guns up, boys. I think for as many warts as Kansas has this year compared to the normal Kansas we're used to, they hadn't really had many of those issues at home, and we had documented this. I mean, they gave the game away against Houston, and I don't know how Houston won this game like 3 different times. Kansas basically has it dead to rights, has it won, but that's kind of, and I think that you saw some of those glimpses a little bit with the Texas Tech Kansas game, in that they just can't execute something out of bounds, or like you throw it in the stands and it's just like something is a bit off with some of their turnovers. But it just takes a lot, because you almost have to be, this is what we talked about on the broadcast a bit, but you almost have to be 8 to 10 points better than they are in that building more often than not, because the way that it's managed and called and all that, it's just the way it is. It doesn't make it right. That's just the way it is. I guess they've earned that. I don't know. Yeah, because the foul count, I think, was like 13-4 at one point, 13 on you. And, you know, and you look at it in one way and go, well, you're shooting a bunch of threes. You're not really doing a whole lot. But I'm sorry, is physical and with the post defense and all that, Hunter Dickinson, KJ Adams and all that stuff. Anyway, that's a different point. But bottom line is, you are a team, and I think that's the key word here, because it's a different dude. And it takes all of these guys, and that's been what's been so much fun. You're not riding the coattails of an All-American that's just carrying you, and you hope you get a few things from. No, it's collectively is so much fun, because it's a different set of guys, or a different guy every night out, and you are scary good when all of your players are healthy and rolling. And I wasn't sure what to expect from Chance or Darrion yesterday. I wasn't sure at what level they would be at, but you thought, okay, if they're going to play, then it should just lift. Rising tide raises all boats, right? So it should make everybody feel better. You're like, okay, we can put our best foot forward here for the most part. And then not only did they play, they both played well and were just key. But it was so well-rounded at different times in the game. I mean, Christian Anderson in the first half. Christian Anderson is some of the things he did in the second half. Big three in the corner, the tip out to Elijah Hawkins that led to a run out. Elijah Hawkins being really kind of cold, and then he makes a couple of threes. You know, Federico was hanging in there with 4 fouls. He gets a nice layup, causes Bill Self to have to use up one of his timeouts.
Yeah, like 5 minutes-ish to go or something. I mean, big moment. And McCaslin pointed that out. He had 2 points on the day, but those 2 were humongous at that moment.
And just his ability to stay in the game. And yeah, maybe he was having to concede a few twos, but staying in the middle. And he caused a stop at the very end.
Yep.
And helped that situation. So it was just – and then Toppin was just so good in the first half. And only played 5. I mean, if I tell you that JT Toppin's only going to play 5 minutes in the second half, you probably don't like your chances. But that's the beauty of this particular team. It's that they're used to it. They don't get rattled. They just don't. And they've been thrown into the fire in the Fertitta Center, the McHale Center in Tucson, at Fog Allen. I mean, so nothing you see crowd-wise should ever rattle you. If you've been in the middle of those 3, you hadn't been up to Ames, this particular team. That's the only other environment that I would say would be, on par. And yes, Arizona fans, I included you in that particular group because it was one of the better environments that you'd seen this particular year.
You're so incredible, Arizona. You're amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Make sure we get that out.
But they just don't get rattled. And that's the fun part about this team's like either IQ or emotional, steadiness is they don't freak out. There's
maturity.
Yes.
I think is a word you have to use, which is crazy because we'll include a true freshman in this conversation. But I was wondering, before we get back to some of these individuals, could you expand a little bit more upon what you mean by a bunch of three-pointers? You mean like 18, 22, 31, 38? Am I off?
So
43 attempts, right? Is that right, guys? It was amazing. I think you set a program record.
Yeah, and so there's some people that have looked at this and gone, but this is by or was by design. Not that you showed up to the building yesterday saying, okay, we got to heave up 40 plus, but this is Texas Tech's strength. And I think that based on the last 2 teams, when they face a bigger physical team like Houston, and I think Kansas is this way too because of KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson, it's just tough to get into the paint, kind of do your thing. And obviously JT certainly was a weapon for you at much of the first half until he got in foul trouble. But it's you look at it, okay, what are they going to try to take away or what can we get? And I think Grant looks at it as long as these are mostly, they're not all, but mostly the right shots, he wants volume here because you've got so many shooters that if you get volume, it becomes as we've talked about before, a math problem for the opposition. And Bill Self said this afterwards. He's like, we could pretty much get what we wanted around the paint, in the paint, and they did. They beat you 44-20 as far as points in the paint. And JT pretty much got 18 of those, and then I think Chance got a couple, and I guess Federico got 2 of them. But the 3s for 2s is a math problem.
First, today's episode brought to you by Roy. And before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the athletes they love. Now with Roy, you get to be part of the change and support Texas Tech athletes in the most transparent way possible. Roy, the NIL app, allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, and receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app has given fans control, no more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Just download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Texas Tech athletes with transparency and trust. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your team and your favorite athletes.
The 3s for 2s is a math problem. And that's why, analytically around, the NBA, it's threes or layups. That's what you don't do anything else. It's like take a three, shoot a layup, or try to get to the rim. But this is what they kind of conceded. And so I think Texas Tech was willing to play that game, and they felt like if they got enough of them up, then they would make enough of them. But you just look at it. Okay, 44 to 20 points in the paint. It's a 24-point difference. I'm no math guy here, but you make 15 threes, they make 4. So play the math equation out there in your head a little bit, and you kind of see why. And again, this is a trust thing. You just come off of a night where you were terrible shooting the basketball. It didn't matter where you were shooting it from. A lot of that had to do with Houston, but Kansas gave you a few of these looks. Some of them maybe a bit forced, some of them a bit hurried, but this is what it turned into. It turned into a 3-point shooting contest, and you made 15 of them. And again, when you hold the opposition to just 4 of those, you can trade 3s for 2s and feel pretty good about your situation, because Bill Self was like, we had to get points in the paint and then get enough free throws to try to offset it, and we could not do it. And we didn't guard the arc very well. And some of them, man, it's like, okay, if you're Bill Self, you're like, okay, am I supposed to guard Christian Anderson at like the half-court line? Elijah Hawkins. Yes, I know a lot. Yeah, it's like there's a term in college basketball. It's like, hey, pick them up the NBA point of pickup, like where the NBA 3-point line would be, and that's kind of because he's in range there, and that's what you saw in full display. But yeah, school record, 43 3-point attempts, and I didn't. There's a few of them, maybe less than 5, that you just go, I don't know about that one. Too early in the shot clock. Too far out, whatever. But more often than not, it just comes in the natural flow of ball movement. And you had 7 of your 8 guys in the rotation make one.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for the opposition.
Crazy. I saw you tweeted about that following the game. When you have it spread around like that from beyond the arc, that's going to be tough matchup wise. And I just, first off, look, any shot you make, that's a great shot. So some of these, that maybe when they're going up, you're thinking, I don't like that so much. When they hit the bottom of the net, then that's a great shot, 10 times out of 10. You got back to some success on the road, which has been a common part of your season so far. It's apparently a thing that Grant McCasland does with his basketball teams, and I'm glad he's continuing to do that at Texas Tech, but did not have this scripted out this way, Chris. I don't know how you could. Just crazy to see what they've been able to do so far. Still got one more trip away from home in your regular season finale. You'll be in Tempe, Arizona, but you pick up your 7th road win. I saw that was the first time since 1996, 1997, when you had some saltiness going as a basketball program, that you have gotten that many wins. So you can actually top that mark if you're able to beat Arizona State in the regular season finale. We can talk a lot about what goes into being a quality road team. I'm sure the list is not a short one necessarily, but whatever it is, Texas Tech has got it. Grant McCasland and his staff have got it. And you got to like the way that could turn out when you're thinking about, even though they're neutral sites, but thinking about not being in the USA when you get into postseason play, right? I mean, I know it's not a true road game, but kind of like you were talking about earlier, one of those things that's always on the list if you want to be successful away from home, like poise, sort of even-keeled type of approach, and that steady hand that comes with some maturity and mental toughness. So I feel like I'm almost taking it for granted already. Like, yeah, they won another road game, of course. And this one was in Lawrence, Kansas. But I want to continue to point out it's been an incredible run away from Lubbock this year.
Yeah, and like, it's not that you've I think we probably had a little sign of this in a game away from the building that you lost. And so let me go back to mid-December. And I think we're all still trying to figure out, are you any good or not? Where's this thing going? There's the Cambridge stuff that's happened. You're a bit dinged up. You weren't, Elijah Hawkins hadn't done his thing yet. We haven't seen a lot of these things from Christian Anderson just yet. You're just not real sure what's what at that point. And I think you look back and you go, man, that game in Fort Worth against Texas A&M, which is now like on, projected as like a 2 or a 3 seed and one of the better teams in the Southeastern Conference and one of the top 15 teams in the country, and you play that game without JT Toppin, and you lose that game by, I think, 5 points. And that was really like a sign of these guys are just going to be able to figure it out. And again, I didn't walk away from that game going, thinking, although I wasn't sure how good A&M was at the time. But I think that was probably a little heads up that, they're going to, even a missing piece here or there, they're going to be able to figure it out away from their building and just be able to compete with whoever. And it was like a Kevin Overton show, I think, that particular day. He kind of kept you in the game with a lot of made threes and things like that. But you get wins at Fog Allen, you get wins in the Fertitta Center, and I just one of them, obviously. And it's these are quad 1A games. These are the highest kind of win you can get in the sport by these metrics that they've laid out.
Chris, and I'm still thinking about that little two-step through the state of Utah, early on.
And again, we didn't know. We didn't know. No, nobody else has been able to maneuver their way through that deal. Right. And I guess looking back on it, it was really good for you to get that little trip early, because I think Utah and they've since fired their coach, although they just hammered Arizona State over the weekend. They've been pretty good, and they've gotten some teams up there, and then BYU has just gotten better and better. I mean, they're right there on your heels in the league standings. Mm-hmm. But yeah, nobody else has really been able to maneuver their way through that trip, and you were able to. And again, I didn't come away from that trip going, okay, we got it figured out. Look out, country. Because you just lost to UCF, then you go win these two, and yeah, you kind of feel a bit better, but it's just been a lot of fun. And like, think about how many times that we think about, like, glad you got Kansas State in Manhattan when you got them, right? Because they made life difficult. But yeah, just went on the road, man. It's just one of the most rewarding things in sports, and they've kind of made a habit of that this year. I mean, because there's been times when a Texas Tech team that's been pretty good wins all their home games, maybe wins plenty of games in the November, December timeframe, a couple neutral site, and they may go win one or two on the road. Okay, and and you add all that up, that puts together a pretty good season. And you're
still in the tournament, probably.
Yes, and you're probably seated, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere around in that range, and you feel pretty good about things. But this is why, though, your net is so high. This is why Ken Palm likes you, because you do these things away from your building, and you're doing them against really, really good teams based on some of the other metrics and all that. But it's just it's been a lot of fun, because, I mean, they just kind of have a stone cold killer mentality with them. And like Darrion Williams just has this clutch gene where it may not look pretty, but he's gonna hit a big shot toward the end of these games. And there's a common theme there between the Houston and Kansas wins, where there's a big three that he makes that, one, sends it to overtime, or two, gives you a lead in a game against Kansas, that you're just like, I mean, as soon as it left his hands, is right in front of us. And I'm like, that is going in, because that's what he does.
Well, and his game, man, I enjoy watching him play. I don't think he's quite had the season maybe he wanted to, as far as the consistency of it. And maybe we're still in for a big March or big postseason. I certainly wouldn't rule that out. He's just fun to watch, though, man. There's something like I don't want to compare him to one of the best players on the planet, but there's something sort of Luka-esque in the way that you watch him with the ball in his hands, and I'm like, I see nothing flashy. I see nothing quick. I don't even really see anything explosive, but I'm seeing another shot at the block at the rim for two. Like, how did he get here again? The way that he's able to use his body and the leverage and kind of the positioning he's able to get. And I say this with all due respect, not trying to say you're not quick or flashy, Darrion. 2 points, 3 points, always flashy. But you get what I'm saying, right? He's got something kind of like slow, methodical type approach that's effective. And it sort of reminds me of Luka Doncic, in that there's a lot of times you're like, this dude's not athletic enough to get to the rim compared to these guys he's facing, but he just does it. And he was really the steady hand throughout the game. We saw like a big first 20 for Toppin, a big first 20 for Christian Anderson. Hawkins came on in the final 20. There were sort of these halves for some of these other guys, but Darrion was kind of the steady Eddie, I guess, first and second half.
Well, he's got an old man game. I mean, kind of, and what I mean by that, he's not this just elite athlete that's flying out of the gym and doing all these things. I mean, he's got an old man game, and that's a compliment, because there's a Swiss Army knife component to it too. But, he has 14, 9, and then 4 assists. But it's like whatever the team needs, he can seemingly give them that. And that's rare. Some guys are just a scorer. Some guys are just, Darrion's just a hooper. I mean, he just
Chris, and also it's like they've got to score in this specific context. Like, here's my sweet spot. I got to be at my sweet spot, or I've got to get it.
Yes.
And he's just
like
versatile.
The pass that he threw in traffic in the post to JT Toppin. What was
put it in the Louvre. I'm going to borrow a phrase from you.
It was yes.
A thing of beauty.
I was like, this is church, is what it is. Yes. I was like, oh my, you can't defend that kind of stuff. And like a lot of his shots, when he backs you down, and it's kind of like the fadeaway, I'm not meaning to go all Mavericks here, but it's kind of like a Luka or Dirk Nowitzki thing, where it's kind of like this fadeaway. I'm going to lob it way up. Both of those Mavericks, old man game type thing too. And it's like you just can't really defend that. If I can get to where I want to go and I'm going to shoot it higher than you and I'm going to make it, there's just not a lot that defense can do. But, he's been – and I'm just glad that you've got your pieces back. And I still would like to think that if one of those two guys, he or Chance, would have played Monday night, I'd like to think the result would have been different. But that's not the hand that we were dealt. But they seemingly – were in good spirits. They seemingly were no worse for the wear. They both played, Darrion 33 minutes, Chance played 36 minutes. I can't say that there's obviously not any kind of minute restriction, or I kept waiting for, are they going to limp through this, or what percentage? But it seemed pretty close to normal type games, and that's what it required. So anyway, it was just, it's a fun team to be around, man, and just watch compete, because there's just not a lot of ego here.
No.
Not a lot of ego, and I just think Grant has done such a wonderful job of pulling it all out of them. And again, it's like the 7 guys making a 3. After the game is over, he points out, like, it was Fede that kind of stabilized us, and was able to stay in the game. He hits a big 2. And Elijah Hawkins makes a couple of 3s. But it's just a little bit of everything. It's a beautiful little recipe that you've got, and that's why I think you're starting to make some noise.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. And FanDuel's live betting feature electrifies every moment. Whether backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch shot, you're never going to miss your chance to get in on the action. Plus, the app, easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
And that's why I think you're starting to make some noise around the country, and you're getting a lot of street cred built up, because people are going, this team could be a tough out, and you may be in for a fun March. You're not guaranteed anything, and the tournament is hard, and it's unforgiving. You
unpredictable.
Unpredictable, and that's why we love it so much. And you sometimes can be on the right side of that, sometimes you can be on the wrong side of that. So, but I like where you're headed. I like the vibe you've got going, and because think about it in these terms. You're only guaranteed from this point right now, you're only guaranteed 4 more games to play. 4. That's it. 2 regular season, 1 in KC, and then 1 in the tournament. You're going to make the tournament. Okay. So I think we can, that's been established.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. But that's it. So, enjoy it. And then let's see how many more games you can play on top of that. That would be the challenge here.
I get a reminder of the unpredictability of the tournament almost every day, because almost every day in my X feed, I've got, Furman in Virginia, Kevin Nealon going insane. Not Kevin Nealon, Kevin Harlan going insane. Kevin Nealon's probably going insane wherever he was. I get that video almost every day on my feed, and I stop every day. and I watch it because it was absolutely insane. But just as a reminder of what can happen in the NCAA tournament. And you're right. That's kind of that's sort of a sobering thought. Only 4 games guaranteed that you're going to get, but hopefully we'll have a few more. Before we get out of here, Chris, I've got to mention our guy, Christian Anderson, because C4 was certainly lighting it up. All the points come from beyond the arc, 5 of 10. JT Toppin was your leading scorer. I think Christian Anderson had the best game of anybody in a Texas Tech uniform on Saturday. I think it was his best game of the year, possibly. Had a plus 12 as far as the plus minus is concerned, and it's not just because of the points, obviously we say that. 4 rebounds, had 6 assists, 2 steals, goose egg, 0 in the turnover column. And you're doing this in Lawrence, Kansas? How old are you again? Are you a reincarnated Buddhist monk? Where does this maturity come from?
His dad has done a phenomenal job of, like, I don't know if the right word is raising or training or mentoring or all the above, but he's just so, because his dad played professionally over in Germany, hence the dual citizenship thing. And I just think, because like statistically, because I think not to like twist your words, but you said statistically the best game of any Red Raider or something like that along those lines.
I just think the best game Saturday of any Red Raider.
I'll tell you, there's one metric that tells you you're exactly right, and it's hard data. But the plus minus, the plus minus on this thing, Christian Anderson had the best plus minus of anybody on the Texas Tech team or anybody in the game, obviously, with a 12. Hunter Dickinson also was a 12, but we're tied there. But as far as Red Raiders go, which means that you're 12 points better every time he's on the floor. There's a million things that go into that. Some people don't really look at that number. Some people do, but bottom line is. It's just I said on the broadcast as we got going, I'm fascinated to see, I think my words were, I'm fascinated to see how Christian Anderson handles his environment, because these are the environments that will not bother him. And in fact, he may play up to the stage, if that makes sense. And this is exactly what he did. Like a lot of freshmen, you're like, oh gosh, you get them out of the comfort of home. They get rattled. They do things that are uncharacteristic. It just gets moving too fast for them. No, with this young man, it's like, if anything, he gets more focused and sharper and better and all of it, like with that, environment and all that. And I watched Bill Self on more than one occasion, like when some of these threes were getting bombed in, like going like who is this kid? Or like, what are we supposed to do with this? And he just like looks at his bench and everybody's got palms up, and I'm just like,
looking for ideas, guys. Looking for ideas.
Welcome to the C4 party. Yeah. So
that was awesome.
But I just it's just a pleasure to watch him compete. It really, really is.
No doubt. And you broke Kansas. Bill Self released a statement today, which I thought anytime a head coach is releasing a statement, he must have like some officiating gripe or something like that. No, he's just saying, sorry, we suck. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
that was the gist of the statement.
I watched some of this happen in real time, but the Kansas fan base is angry.
Yes, they are.
And I think it's worth pointing out that, like, in college basketball, maybe even more so than football, but the same thing applies in football with what we talk about. In the days of the portal, everybody's got some money, and it's about how you want to spend it and who you want to spend it on. And I just think that you look at what you did, and boy, did you evaluate and choose correctly with who you decided to bring into your program. Skill sets, character, the IQ, maturity, whatever, however you wanted to get to the end of it on, okay, this is a good fit for us, and these are all the reasons why. But for all the good that you did, it's just pretty clear that Kansas chose incorrectly. And the media largely looked at what they brought in there and were like, this piece averaged 17 points a game at Wisconsin. This piece averaged 17 points a game at South Dakota State. This piece is a sniper for a Final Four team in Alabama. And then we're going to keep our nucleus together. We're going to add them to it. Look out. I mean, they're about to hang a banner in Lawrence, and it just has not worked. And the Kansas fans have really taken it out on some of these portal entries. One, everybody knows, large in part, how much these guys are making, or rumors of such, and they know they're all well paid. But some of these turnovers and missed shots at the end of the game yesterday, and I'm looking across, and you just see some of these Kansas fans being very, very angry and yelling outwardly toward these Kansas dudes, and that's just not something you're used to seeing. A lot of this spilled out on the social media that was very ugly and racist and all the stuff. And I think Bill Self was like, "Hey man, I'm your target. Don't get after these dudes."
Oh, do you think that's why he released a statement? I didn't.
1,000%. 1,000%.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That's why. And it was
unusual. I thought it was a little bizarre. He was just basically releasing a statement saying, "Hey, I wish we won. Sorry, we didn't."
Yeah, it was because Zeke Mayo was, and it's not pretty to go out and look, and there's just none of that's called for. But
you got to love it too when you lose a game, and then all of a sudden the players are like, "But wait, see how I'm victimized every day on social media, unlike the rest of the world." I guess I don't know, but they love to immediately run to screenshots. We feel terrible for you.
Yeah, that's right. So
it always happens. I don't know, Chris, what to expect when the tournament arrives, obviously. But as I said yesterday in a post-game reaction video, I feel like we're ready for March. I don't know if you're playing your best basketball or what to call it, but that was a big win and maybe one of the most complete team wins as far as what each piece contributed that we've seen yet. And that makes you really feel good about your chances in the postseason. So can't wait to get there. We got a couple more in the regular season before we get there. And on tomorrow's episode, we'll talk about what's on the line in these final two ball games. You'll host Colorado and then visit Arizona State before you hit the conference tournament. We'll talk seeding, maybe where Texas Tech would be if the tournament began this week. And again, what's on the line in these final two. So looking forward to that as we get a little bit closer to one of the most enjoyable times of the year. And looks like we got a team that's going to make it even more so enjoyable. I used to love this time of the year when my team didn't even participate. So it's been a lot of fun to actually have a dog in the fight, and one that's bite is just as tough as its bark, apparently. So it's going to be a fun March. We're kicking the door open to this month with a big win and hopefully more to come, man. Looking forward to the next round with you. We'll see you for that one.
Yeah, there's just nothing better than March Madness, man. It is the gift that keeps on giving, and whether you're in it or not, you still appreciate it. But, boy, it's a lot more fun to be in it, especially if you are really in it, like the Red Raiders could, in fact, be. So we'll kind of break down the next steps and kind of where everything sits as you're heading into the last week of the regular season. And, boy, I tell you, February 1st, you go to the Fertitta Center and win in Houston. March the 1st, you go to Lawrence, Kansas, and beat the old Jayhawks. The first days of these months, man, have been really kind to you, certainly. So let's keep playing on April 1st. What do you say?
I was going to say, I don't know if there's one on April 1st, but could you be tuning up for another one by? I don't know. Hey, let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And if it keeps going well, then we're going to keep you on the floor May 1st. June 1st.
Okay.
1st.
I'm happy to do it. Yes, happy to do it.
Appreciate you, Chris, and appreciate everybody for being out there, joining us for this one as we look back on the Red Raiders win. And I hope you'll join us this week as well as we get ready for the Buffaloes to come to town. We'll talk seeding and what's still out there for Texas Tech to earn or possibly lose if you trip up over these final two. We'll get to that coming up. So hope to see you for that one. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Shout out to the everydayers out there, always riding along, and shout out to the Matador Mob. It was a fun Matador Mob texting party. We were burning up the wires following the ball game on Saturday afternoon. Hit the show notes, find the link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time. And as always, we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.